Right, everyone. Welcome. This is Cambridgeshire County Council's Shareholder Subcommittee. The County Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and use social media during the meeting. Can I ask, though, that everyone present turns their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? Please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the County Council's website. There is no fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting and we will leave via the side doors and use the fire escape next to the kitchen to make our way to the assembly point in the car park. The doors are there. Right, so we'll move to our first agenda item, which is apologies for absence and declarations of interest. Would the Democratic Services Manager report any apologies for absence?
Chair, I haven't received any apologies.
Thank you. Anyone with any declaration of interest to make?
So this land is in my division, and I have properties being developed by this land in my division.
Yeah, similarly, I also have this land development in my division. Okay. Moving on to item 2. We're being asked to approve the minutes of the Shareholder Subcommittee on the 24th of July as an accurate record. Does everyone agree? Excellent. I see no objections, so we'll approve the minutes as an accurate record, and we will take that as carried unanimously. An updated action log is also included in the public papers for this meeting. So now item 3, public questions and petitions. We've received one public question for the committee today relating to agenda item 5. The applicant will be invited to speak at the start of that item. So moving on to item 4, which is the Opus East Joint Venture Overview. The Executive Director of Finance and Resources will introduce this report.
Thank you, Chair. As the executive summary notes, the purposes of this report is to provide further information to the subcommittee regarding a request from a previous subcommittee back in June. The arrangements with Opus dates back to 2016. There were new shareholders joined the arrangement from Northamptonshire, Milton Keynes in 2017, as set out in the report. There were changes that then occurred in relation to that membership, resulting from both the dissolution of the local government shared services, but also the local government reorganisation affecting Northamptonshire. And that led to the current situation where, as set out in paragraph 3.4, in 2021, the shareholder arrangements changed, and as set out at paragraph 3.5, new allocations were then set out. The result of that, as set out at paragraph 3.6, saw an advantageous position to the County Council over its original shareholding based upon the new method of calculating dividend after the net profit tax resulting from the gross profit contribution of the County Council to the overall spend, as I say, as set out at page 36. And as you can see there, that had £100,000 plus advantage to the County Council. It would, though, be remiss of me to not address the fact remains that there is a 52% split for Suffolk County Council as opposed to 48% for the rest. This clearly recognises the risk and the liabilities that are carried by Suffolk in result of current and any potential future events. And I would agree that this is something that we need to review as we move forward, as the contract is next up in January 2027, and that's something that officers will be taking forward.
Thank you, Michael. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Hathorn.
Thank you for this. It's actually quite very helpful that Councillor Bowden asked a lot of questions which were unable to be answered in the last time this item was brought to the committee. So this is a really helpful report. In the light of local government reorganisation, it strikes me as so if the contract is going to be negotiated in 2027, it's difficult to know what the plan is. So I guess what I need to know is not only is the council looking to renegotiate it, how are they going to manage what that might look like in terms of that negotiation? And can I clarify, when additional partners joined the scheme, like, it is very generous to Suffolk, could Cambridgeshire argue for more? Because when there were two partners, that share balance made sense, but now Suffolk have got a very large share of the profits. So I guess the questions are, beyond the shareholder relationship, in order to negotiate, we need to understand what the council's strategy is for a future kind of bank of people. Is that a piece of work that's going on? And also, what does that negotiation about that profit share look like? How realistic is that for us to negotiate harder?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Chair, I think a number of points there. Excellent point made about local government reorganisation. It will affect many contracts, and it is impossible to say at this point what that will look like. But clearly, at some point during 2026, we will have some indication from government will help us inform those discussions and where that goes. The issue in relation to the company's shareholding and that split of the 48% versus the original position where it was 70-30, I think there's a couple of things there. Firstly, as the table at paragraph 3.6 shows, what wasn't then accepted was that any dividend was tied to the shareholding, because obviously that would have watered that down, and it was reflective of, therefore, the parties that were bringing income to the table needed to be recognised through the dividend distribution methodology. And that's what's being captured. And as a result, at the table, we can see that actually through that redistribution methodology, we as a county council have gained above what we would have done on the original shareholding. I think the bigger point is in terms of the future direction of the company and the number of stakeholders and who is having conversations around that, obviously is impacted by the shareholding position, and clearly the risk as it stands sits with Suffolk if we were to change any of those arrangements. So we need to consider that carefully as we move forward in terms of what those new arrangements might be, not forgetting that Suffolk is one of those councils that itself is going through LGR. So it will be a complicated process in terms of trying to pick through that, but it's certainly something that I think through this committee we will look to challenge and bring back in terms of its future direction.
But I think it would be fair to say that the increased number of participants has been a benefit to everyone.
It certainly has, both in terms of during those initial phases, which were actually coincided with the pandemic, in terms of that breadth and ability to attract, but also to manage the market, but also in terms of that gross profit margin.
Okay, thank you, Michael. I think that's a lot of food for thought, and you seem to be on it, so that's great. Any more further questions? Okay, so we are asked to note the content of the report. Right, moving on to item 5. This is the This Land Business Plan Monitoring Update. I'd like to welcome from This Land Laura Lawrence, Chief Financial Officer, and Ross Mole, Development Manager. They are attending to answer questions of clarity in both the public and private sessions, so I will leave the meeting after these questions. I would also like to welcome Becky Francis, Development Surveyor on the Council's Property Assets team, who is joining us online. Can I invite the Executive Director of Finance and Resources to introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair. And if I may, I might just also hand over at one point to Laura before I then come back to clarify, if that's okay with you, Chair. As was set out at the last meeting, which approved the business plan, this report monitors This Land's performance over the first 2 quarters of 2025-26. I think it's fair to say that overall performance has been promising, with most work on target, and the return as set out is unaffected from the business plan. So that gives us continued assurity over the loan repayment and the company's cash flow, in particular that it doesn't need any drawdown or requests from any other resources. Turning to the report, paragraph 3.2 sets out the specific progress, and we've also included in the public pack Appendix 1A and 1B, which is a RAG assessment, a rating of risk assessment on each of the sites at the 2 quarter points. And you'll see from the comments at paragraph 3.8 from our external advisors that we do have a reporting pack in more detail in the confidential appendices, and there is further improvement suggested in that reporting for members in terms of following the report. And I'm pleased to say that the recommendations, as I've set out in the public paper, have been accepted and will be brought back to this committee in future monitoring reports. I'm also really pleased to say that the statement of accounts are set out at paragraph 3.4 were signed unqualified by the company's external auditors on the 8th of August and have now been filed at Company House. Also, in line with the business plan, you will see that there has been a continued management, as set out at page 3.4, of the company's ongoing pay bill. And we've seen a reduction, as set out there, in the overall pay bill in 25-26 of 27% less than the previous year, and we've also seen as a result performance payments reduced as well within that. It's paragraph 4.2. Members will see that a number of sites are being progressed over and above those sites that were brought to the last committee. We have 4 in particular that are named here, and these are both being brought forward in line with the timetable of the business plan and in terms of the financial forecasts of the business plan. There is more detail on these sites, again, in the confidential papers, and we can come back to that. I'll come back after Laura, if I may, Chair, because I think it might be helpful just to set out some of the questioning and how to maybe view the public and the confidential pack, which may be helpful to councillors. But one point before I do just turn to Laura is in terms of the board's governance, Section 5 does set out a number of factors. Firstly, the shareholders agreement does require that we receive all board and subcommittee papers of This Land, and that we have a number of other returns that are sent to us. As you will see in the confidential pack, a number of those have been included. And I'm pleased to see that the company is complying with that, and there is regular dialogue between myself as the shareholder representative and the company. We've also discussed a board effectiveness review that was last carried out in 2023 and will be carried out in 2026. And the outcome of that will be brought here back to this committee. And finally, there is also the matter of the board membership. As this committee will be aware, we took the decision to recruit a number of new board members this year. Alongside that, I draw the committee's attention to 3 of the existing board members will have their period run out within the next 12 months. And in fact, Wendy Colgraves has just run out. Therefore, if we look at that 3 years hence, we could be in a situation where we are looking to replace an entire board potentially, and that's never good for running any business. So we need to stagger this and get that board legacy and succession planning right. And that's something we are now turning to. And as you'll see from both the recommendations and are set out at paragraphs 5.3 and 5.4, we're recommending that Wendy Colgrave, who brings tremendous experience from a financial perspective, particularly having been CFO herself in this industry, is extended for a further 12 months. That will enable us to then look at that staggering approach, and we'll bring further reports back on other members' extensions in the new year 2026 relating to particularly 2 of the board members whose membership runs out and decision needs to be or period ends. A decision needs to be taken before March 2026. So we'll bring a report to the next committee on that. So I'll pause at that point, Chair. If it's possible, if Laura could maybe make a few statements. Or...
We'll finish this introduction and then we'll have the public question. Sorry.
It's just, Ross, if you can step back, then Laura can step into the other. Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. And good morning, everybody, and thank you, and thank you to the committee for inviting us here today. I just want to give an overview of the last 2 quarters. Quarter 1 went well. We had no significant construction operations in the period, so no health and safety incidents or issues. Continuing to do regular site monitoring. We undertook 21 site surveys during the period. Delivery performance being good, all milestones met, with only a short delay receiving planning report for Kendall Court. During the quarter, we also completed the implementation of our new main accounting module of Coins, which is our new ERP system, enabling us to report more accurately and quickly. And we commenced our audits on internal processes as part of a programme of improvement and development of better reporting and governance. We received a number of freedom of information requests during the period. We've worked closely with the council's team and shareholder representatives to ensure we've responded appropriately to all of these, most of which duplicated requests received by county. And we had 4 leavers in the period, 2 of whom had already handed their notice in at the end of March. We had 3 joiners, including the interim CEO and a replacement company secretary. Staff are very nervous in Q1 due to significant upheaval in the early part of the year, with the CEO leaving, along with the chair, and a number of team members being made redundant. As we move into Q2, we've also had very good performance. As previously, no significant construction activity and no health and safety issues. Vacant site inspections have continued, of course. During the quarter, we've made improvements to the land forecasting arrangements and commenced an update of our ESG strategy, now including carbon footprint baselining. Financially, the forecast has improved, with cash flow expected to be 373k ahead at the end of the current financial year. This is purely around timing of spend and forecasting changes, not signifying project delays, purely timing of payments, essentially the movement between the end of March and the beginning of April. Full plan forecast has improved to 103k ahead, which is mainly due to improvements at Burwell with layout changes and the redesign of the project. We continue to receive freedom of information requests, but we've not responded to any directly as they are copies of ones that are received by county. We have a short-term contractor to help development team through the period of the land disposals to help meet the milestones that we have. And staff morale seems to be improving with some of the historic uncertainty relieved and, of course, the approval of the business plan.
Okay, thank you. Michael, do you want to finish up?
Thank you. And Laura, I'll invite you to, if you step back to the back and we'll come back later on. Yeah, finally, I just thought it would be helpful because there is a huge pack there for councillors, and there's an awful lot to debate. And clearly, one of our key focuses here is the security over the loan and the cash flow position within the company to repay that and the interest. So members have full details there on the income and the expenditure on the sites. It also has details in terms of offers on particular sites. They are confidential for obvious reasons, but I will state them, that being the commercial position. A number of contracts and a number of sale negotiations are presently in flight. And therefore, if these were to be leaked or discussed in open forum, they would put the company's cash flow and valuation at risk. Clearly, that therefore impacts upon ourselves in terms of our own security over the loans. And members will note there's a number of options being pursued over a number of sites, and therefore that would be something that would be commercially damaging if that were known outside of the closed session. However, there is an awful lot in the pack talking about the site progressions themselves. And one of the key roles of this committee in terms of its governance is holding to account the company in terms of how it is moving and progressing through that and what assumptions it is making around planning, external factors, future cost inflation, and other such assumptions. And that is absolutely right and proper that you are digging into that detail. And in a lot of circumstances, as long as it's not referring to the specifics of the site in terms of its income or expenditure options or return on investment, then that is legitimate to be in the public forum and right and proper that they are that our residents see you having that challenge over the company. Also, you'll see there are things in there such as the staff turnover. The impacts of that is an absolutely legitimate question. There is questions about the pay bill and coping with that, but individual salary details would be confidential. So I hope that helps. If there is a query, then please do ask. We'll try and guide as best we can, and if best want to keep that into a confidential session, then please pick it up there. But I know want to encourage as much debate in public forum over what is clearly a significant matter for the council.
Thank you, Michael. Right, so with that introduction over, I'd now like to invite Mr. Guy Lackland to present his public question to the committee. Mr. Lackland, you have 3 minutes to present your question.
Thank you, Chair. I wonder if you could explain to me, please, how £34.2 million worth of loans made by the County Council in August and November 2020 to this land have been secured against properties already fully mortgaged under previous council loans. For example, the properties at 8 Station Road, Foxton and 1 Fitzwilliam Road, Cambridge were already mortgaged to the council in 2018 in charge references 0011 and 0010 respectively. But somehow these same properties were then mortgaged again under charge references 0028 and 0029 in 2020, as can be clearly seen in Companies House records. As you represent the sole shareholder and by extension us, the taxpayers of Cambridgeshire, please could you explain how the council's money has been repeatedly secured against the same properties, especially considering that the original charge documents stipulate in paragraph 6.3 that the properties are free from any security other than the security created by this deed?
Thank you very much. I believe, Michael, you're going to respond.
Thank you, Chair. So firstly, to clarify, there were only £24.1 million of loans issued in that period. Secondly, the council has taken a belt and braces approach in its lending to This Land Limited and its subsidiaries over charges. It is common practice in property finance transactions to secure lending through all monies charges, which remain effective for securing future borrowing, provided they are not discharged. In this case, the council also opted to acquire further security in connection with subsequent lending, which is conventional and prudent approach in structured finance. The wording of the charges refers to each charge being a first legal charge, which reflects standard drafting practice in financial transactions. In the case of the 2020 debentures, the reference to a first legal charge was not strictly accurate given the existence of the earlier charges. However, this does not prejudice the council's position. The grant of subsequent charges did not diminish the earlier ones, and no legal charges in favour of any third party have been registered. The council have therefore remained the first legal charge holder of each of the relevant properties, and its security and priority remains protected. And before undertaking the financing in 2020, the council commissioned external appraisal to confirm that there was sufficient value in the properties being charged to support the additional lending.
Thank you, Michael. Okay. There are a number of confidential appendices, which I'm sure the subcommittee will wish to discuss, meaning that we will need to go into confidential session. However, we had this at the last meeting, and actually we found that a lot of discussion in the confidential session could have been made in public. So I'd like to encourage us all to make as much of this discussion in public as possible. Michael's given us some guidance about what can and cannot be said publicly. So hopefully we're all kind of aware of what we can and can't say. As ever, you can always ask questions about that. So now we will move to the debate on the non-confidential part of the report. Oh, yes, yes. So before we actually start, let's have Laura and Ross come forward, and we can ask them questions as well. Right, thank you. So, questions, anyone? Lahathon.
I have quite a few questions, so I don't know what the best way of doing this is. Shall I sort of get started, and then you can maybe if I do a few, and then we can move around a bit. So firstly, I wanted to say that I wanted to just make a more general statement, which is that as councillors, so I became a councillor in 2021, and this land has been at the top of the things that we have always been worried about, frankly. And this report and the progress over throughout this year has represented a massive step change from a situation where it was all sort of going on over there and quite privately to a situation where we have an extraordinary amount of information presented to us, which we are now able to properly interrogate and ask questions about. So we've got the minutes, all this information is here, and we are here in a committee discussing this. And it's a committee which has the time and the space and the capacity to go into detail And I think that is a really important step forward, and it has helped sort of increase our reassurance that actually we actually have a really sound strategy and we are moving forward together as the council, as shareholder, and this land in a more effective, productive, sensible way than has happened previously. I just wanted to say that. I also wanted to, before I ask questions about this report, I also think I'd like to say that we went on a site visit, the chair and Michael, to this land offices to talk to the senior team and other staff members, and it was a very helpful meeting. And I wanted to ask Laura about the way the finances for this land have presented over time, and because I thought that was really helpful, and it also helped build my confidence in the company. So the difference between when you arrived at the company and what's happened now, if you could possibly explain that, that would be really helpful.
Of course, when I arrived at the company, the accounting reporting was fairly limited. It took quite a long time to produce, and we had a lack of, I guess, reconciliation of accounts in the kind of detail that we have now. We went through a process of reviewing all of the information, putting together a full historical picture, producing monthly accounts with variances to budget, to reconciling all of the different numbers, to gathering all of the information. We have full audits, we have full internal control over the finances, and everything is monitored. I'm not sure how much I can say publicly outside of that.
No, that's really helpful, and it's that sort of difference between recognizing that when you got that there has been a change in approach, and what we are seeing here is we are seeing detailed tables of finances and of RAG rated targets, and we can look at the sites in real detail, and that's really, really helpful. So I'll ask a couple of my questions aren't in any particular order, so I'll ask 3 questions, and then perhaps someone else would like a go. So in terms of media relations, as it happened, I was in this land offices this week to talk about the application of a development in my division, and I think what came out in that meeting was that, and this is also reinforced by conversations with other councillors, that so when we look at the kind of media strategy of this land, there's a lot of talk about the kind of higher level attacks on this land. I think what I'm not seeing in the media strategy, and also is coming back to me from other councillors, is that those attacks on this land, even if they're defended by this land in there's an explanation, it still undermines confidence at, say, parish council and local level. So there's that need to engage in a way that perhaps other development companies don't have to do that. And we did have a really helpful conversation, but I know on the Burwell site there was a feeling that that level of just kind of local conversation between this land and the parish council and residents, whatever, wasn't as good as it could be, bearing in mind there's always this level of fear about this land because there is so much in the press about it. So I was wondering whether the strategy whether moving forward the strategy can kind of take account of that kind of more local level communications as well as the high level communications. Actually, that's one question. Maybe I'll just stop there.
No, absolutely. We are currently going through a process with our PR company to start to increase our media position. Now that we have an approved business plan and an agreed strategy going forward, we're in a position to be able to do that. And of course, we can encompass more local marketing as well, PR as well.
On before anyone else has a go. So where am I going with this? Actually, maybe I'll think about it. If someone else has a question, maybe you want to go first.
Councillor Murphy.
So, strictly speaking, I think my questions arise from information that we have that are in the confidential section. But bear with me because I feel feel fairly confident that we should be able to deal with them here. So in terms of ESG, you mentioned about baselining. We have a baselining approach. So, you know, it's evident that there's sort of different approaches in different places, and it's not necessarily the same approach. And I'm not able to open the policy documents, unfortunately, which would be really helpful if we could actually get those forwarded to us, because they're sort of embedded in the document and not come out. But it would be helpful to understand what the ESG policy framework is and how you're progressing as a company towards it.
We currently are just rebaselining now.
Sorry, can you explain what that means?
I guess we're starting afresh with our ESG strategy. We're gathering information and we're working together to put forward full information at a later date. It will come to committee at a later date.
But what sort of information are you collecting? What I'm saying is, what's your goal? What's the ambition?
It's a good question. We are gathering information on
it's probably helpful to reflect just back where the company is in terms of both our target to achieve and meet any local plan requirements, and then the company has set on top of that its own specific targets and it's trying to achieve 10% higher than the local plan baselines. And has put a significant element of that into its planning applications and any development that it does around building construction and the material element of that. It has also put a considerable focus on water, given particularly the interest and issues that Cambridge faces. And I think from my discussions with the board, that's where it sees that element being developed and rebaselined to assess whether, of course, there's the affordability issue, but as it brings forward, whether that can be extended through other means, including photovoltaic and other methods. But clearly, it's got a balancing act there to manage within its financial position.
Thank you. Well, I would, you know, perhaps it is something for another meeting, but I would, or maybe it's in one of the links that I can't open, but I would like to understand what this land means by ESG, because there's ESG and ESG and ESG, and therefore what kind of data it is collecting, to what end, if you see what I mean. And what tools and techniques you are planning to use to evaluate it, because I think you know, there's a lot of talk about ESG. People mean a lot of different things by it, and what we don't want is greenwash. So it would be just really helpful to, you know, maybe at a future date have a bit more information about that.
And I agree, and maybe that's something we can bring back to the next committee meeting with a report on what we've been doing and what we're looking to report, and we can give you something a little bit more eloquent.
Okay, shall I ask a question? Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking at page 29, which is the milestone deliverable tracker. And I am delighted to see that Q1 is all green and you've met your targets. Fantastic. However, there are some orange boxes in the Q2 report or column. So I'd just like to go through those orange items. So let's talk about Soham East. We want to secure a Section 106 agreement. It should have been done by Q2, according to this, and it hasn't been done. So what's happened and what's the current status now?
So unfortunately, we've had some hold-ups with the Section 106 delayed by the East Cambs Council. Unfortunately, due to, I believe, sickness and people leaving, it's not been looked at until very recently. it's currently sitting back with between our lawyers and the Pathfinder, the council's lawyers, to agree the final wording. But we're getting very close to resolution.
Okay, so you reckon that'll be done this month in October, or?
I think it's down to the legal discussions that are ongoing, but I would like to hope so, yes.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, very close then. All right, the next orange box is Brampton. So what we should have done is accepted the best bid, agreed heads of terms, and commenced the charge release so that we can sell the property. So what's happening there?
So we've had offers on Brampton. We've had an offer that potentially could add more value by using some adjacent council land, which is under discussion, which has delayed that decision slightly. We are in a position we could move forward, but we're just exploring all the options before we do. Obviously, we know that once those decisions have been made, we need to come back for approval at subcommittee.
So, I mean, would it be fair to say that we could have gone ahead, but we think we might get more value by this extra possibility?
Correct.
Okay. And when do you reckon that will happen?
Again, this is imminent discussions.
Okay.
within the next month, I would hope.
Right. Okay. And then the next one is Malta Road, secure a Section 73 application consent and go to market.
So we've gone to market and we've had offers received. So we can go ahead with the offers now. We're waiting for a 73 to increase the value, but we can go ahead with offers which are around the business plan.
Are they connected? The value and the Section 73,
No.
are they connected? So the Section 73, just for anyone who's listening, that's an amendment to the planning consent, and generally enables the company to save money. Would that be fair to say?
Correct.
Yep.
Yep.
So in other words, that will increase profits.
It
Yeah.
will increase. We're progressing to heads of terms with the preferred bidder currently.
Right, that's great. So when do we reckon the Section 73 agreement or no permission will be received?
It's with city planners, so I can't answer that question.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I would add it's long past the determination deadline on the Section 73, and it's a relatively minor amendment. It's looking at adjusting the window sizes. So we would hope that it would be imminent, but obviously it's within the control of the city planners.
Okay, so you reckon it's a minor amendment, you should receive it, and yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we've not had any objections as far as I'm aware so far. So
Right. Okay. Thank you. So then the last orange box is Soham North, Plot C, where we should have accepted the best bid, agreed heads of terms, and commenced the sale process. So what's happening there?
It's a similar situation to Brampton. We've received a number of offers. There is an alternate option that could add more value by using some more of county land, which we are exploring with Shareholder. Again, we have an offer which we could accept tomorrow if we decide that that's the right option.
Right. And still potentially, I mean, still might be the right one, right?
It might be the right one, so yes.
And so any idea on timing of that?
Again, I would expect that to happen within the next month.
Okay, great. And then just finally, just a view on how Q3 is looking. I know it's very early in Q3.
Currently, we are looking to be on track for most options.
Okay, thank you. Anyone got? Councillor Hathorn.
Yep, so there's two sort of questions here. The first is sort of general strategic question. So if you look through the sites, I think it almost looks like a history of different sort of periods of this land. And Councillor Bradnam cannot, as soon as this land is mentioned, Councillor Bradnam complains about the development in Horningsea, which I think from the outside, without looking at any confidential papers, doesn't look like it's gone particularly well. And we also have a whole load of strategic land purchases outside the county. Is it right to say that these are sort of lessons have been learnt in both of those cases, and the business is looking at a strategy which I guess focuses on bigger sites and is focusing to areas in a smaller sort of geographical area.
I've lost the mic. Absolutely, there are many lessons been learned over the last few years, and we are definitely forming a new strategic plan based on success stories.
Oh, brilliant. And the follow-up to that, which relates to the yellow boxes in the Q2 trackers. So clearly one of the big risks in being a development company, particularly like this land, which is particularly focused on bringing forward land, is the relationship with the planning authorities. And I guess if you, within a smaller geographical area, at least you get to build relationships and know how those planning authorities operate. When they're not giving you answers, I guess, what does this land do? Do you have a strategy? Are you sort of attacking that from all directions to try to get answers? And also, is the sort of within the plan, is there sufficient contingency, or are you finding you're ending up with delay and delay and delay because the clarity isn't delivering, or have you built that into your timeframes?
We have absolutely built that into our timeframes. I think, and Ross can correct me, I think our planning determination should be within about 12 weeks, and we factor in about 12 months. We work with everybody. We're constantly in contact with the planners, or we work with the shareholder to help where possible. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to help push those through.
Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, thanks. If I can also just add to that, the extended contingency was one of the factors that we drew councillors' attention to in the business plan production, because obviously that does affect in terms of the cash flow perspective. So we did actually stress test that in itself, and from the lessons learned, advocated to the company that it needed to be prudent as opposed to that risk taking and assumptions. That is something that's built in. I just also recognise that the cash flow basis has a number of lines on it in page 24, and you'll see that actually the loan balance reflected by the grey line being repaid earlier than we've got in terms of the orange line, in terms of the council's agreement with that. On the basis that the company is trying to accelerate sales to repay loan earlier. But if it is to have a buffer due to delays, then through that stress testing, we were able to identify that contingency does allow for a number of these sites to be slightly delayed. I will say slightly. And clearly, Soham is a key. Soham Eastern Gateway is a key facet in that we do all want to move forward. And just going back to your earlier questions, Chair, I would draw committee's attention, and it is a confidential page I'm about to mention. Page 167 does give much more detail on Brampton, Malta Road, the other side. I've just gone from my memory at the moment. Horningsea. That information is also shared with members confidentially, obviously given its commercial nature.
Thank you, Michael. Okay, any further questions? Councillor Hathorn?
So the team size has reduced. Is that, and then there's so how is that a permanent situation? Is that temporary? Is that affecting performance? If I could just sort of understand the position on that, and also, and I guess related to that is that the council officer board member wasn't able to attend the so I guess this is a question for Michael. The council officer board member wasn't able to attend the recent board meeting. Are we sure that relation, that is not problematic? Can I have reassurance that that is sort of that is as planned and that's not harmful to the council? So
Okay, so we'll just you can ask your bit of the question first, and I'll just add to what Ros has said, that I would also like to understand a bit more about the staff morale, because they're very key. I think, you know, the job they're doing is clearly fantastic, and, you know, we're talking about a step change, etc. So I'd like to understand how they are feeling at the moment. Thank you.
I think if I quickly address the councillor attendance at the board, obviously he was unable to make the meeting at quite short notice, unfortunately. He did have a full briefing. He had the board papers, and then he had a full briefing with the company secretary after the meeting to make sure that anything that he'd missed was caught up as part of that. So he's very aware of what was going on and what was said in the meeting. In terms of staff morale and team size, I think it's reasonable to say that we are operating at an okay level for now, assuming no illness. I think so. We're tight, but it's manageable. It's been difficult over the first quarter. Was very difficult. I think there has definitely been a shift in morale in the last quarter, and people are more settled and more content. I'm actually going to pass this one to Ross, because I think he's probably got a better feel of the team. So I'll let him make some comments too.
Yeah, I'd echo those thoughts, definitely. I think been relatively turbulent, obviously, from Q1. Oh, sorry. Yeah, relatively turbulent with obviously the redundancies we saw and the drop in staff levels and resourcing. We are operating more of obviously a lean approach now, but we've got specialist external consultants that are helping fill those gaps where necessary on project specific. We're fully aware of our business plan that we've got at the moment. That's front and center of our delivery, and it's good to have that clear focus, I would say, for us. And it feels certainly more transparent and tangible for us to actually be able to record performances against that. So I guess keeping that mind focus has really helped morale as well, and being able to see us achieve against that business plan. But yeah, I think that resonates with the rest of the team anyway. So
That's good to hear. Michael.
So just also to come back on the councillor appointed board officer, one of the things that we do monitor, and it's why I was able to comment on Wendy's attendance, is we do monitor board attendance as well as other things like training. And so whilst Frank Jordan was not able to attend the 29th of July, I can confirm he did attend the 23rd of September meeting and does have a good attendance at the board meeting, and also sits on the nominations and remuneration committee and attended that as well.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, I have other questions for the confidential session, but just to clarify, you know, RAG rating, very, very helpful, green, amber, red, etc. But there are, and I may just have missed this explanation in the papers, but there's quite a lot of green ones without ticks in, and I just wonder how can that, you know, some have ticks in with a outcome achieved, and some don't have a tick in, but they're actually still green. So just wondering what the key is for that.
So they're all green until we expect them to be delayed. So you'll see for Q3 and Q4, we're expecting everything to be on track. So they're all green. They're not ticked because they've not actually been achieved yet, but we expect them to be.
All right. Questions, right? Trying to think of what I can ask in the public forum. We've talked about staff. We've talked about the orange. Oh yes, I know. How confident are we in repaying those loans early? Because that's a key consideration for us as councillors, that those loans get repaid. You know, it's a great achievement that they might be repaid early. So I think that's great. But how confident are we feeling right now that that will happen?
Absolutely, and we're very committed to want to pay those those loans early. The biggest risk currently is the Section 106 at Soham Eastern Gateway and the subsequent sale.
Right, so we need to sell that with the Section 106 agreement,
We need to have a sale agreed.
right, to be able to repay those loans. Yeah, okay. Michael?
Chair, I think there is a period within which that needs to happen. We're confident in terms of that period. I think the early repayment obviously has that much earlier in 2026 than towards the latter end, as the loan would require it. So I'm satisfied that there has been good progression. Again, in the confidential appendices, there are more information upon that site relating to commercials. So I think obviously clearly underpinning that needs to have that Section 106 finalised. So that is the critical point here. So the council recognises that as well as being the key focus.
Right, Councillor Hathorn.
So the council officer board member, it says in the post, the council officer board, well, will be on the nominations and remuneration panel or committee. So that means that there will be no major financial awards to staff without the council officer being there. Is that correct?
Yes, that committee advises the board, and then the board confirms the decision.
And that hasn't always been the case. Is that a new situation?
I couldn't swear that council representative has not sat on that previously, but that is certainly something that we stipulated this time round to the board. But I'd have to go back through 8 years of
But it's a requirement now that
it is.
The council officer must be on that, and no decisions can be made without the council officer present.
It wouldn't be quorate without the council officer being present, so it couldn't be taken. So, and then the council officer is also sat on the board.
So, for example, no one can structure it so they award themselves a large payoff.
I mean, the committee, the Nominations and Remuneration Committee, receive various aspects, including advice as that progresses, and they will hear and consider that advice objectively and take decisions on that basis. And the council officer is a member of that committee and clearly has therefore a voice and a veto, as it were.
Right, any more questions for the public session? Okay, so it is now time to move to discussion of the confidential appendices. I propose to take item 6 at this point and resolve that the press and public be excluded from the meeting on the grounds that the agenda contains exempt information under paragraph 3 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended. And it would not be in the public interest for this information to be disclosed, as it refers to information relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Murphy. We all agreed? Right. So hang on, we'll just wait for the stream to stop. So yeah, okay, a short 5-minute break if anyone wants to leave the room temporarily. Yep, thank you.